walking now. It got a little too hot where I was sitting, and it told me that the video quality wouldn't be good, so I decided to stop. So when I talk about insights that have stuck, or the mindset that has stuck, there's several. One of the first ones is that I am the same as an enlightened person. That what I'm doing right now is the same as what an enlightened person would do. What I'm feeling is the same that an enlightened person would feel. The thoughts that arise here are the same as the thoughts that would arise for an enlightened person. And this has been of huge value because up until that insight, enlightenment was on a pedestal. It was this, unattainable, but maybe attainable state. But the state that I would never get to because I would always be looking for something else, right? So I guess to be unenlightened is to always be looking for something else. Now there's no longer any looking for anything else because there's no difference between me and an enlightened person. And I challenge everyone to find the same thing about themselves. But there's no difference between you and an enlightened person. Or if there is a difference, the only difference between you and an enlightened person is that you believe there's a difference, whereas an enlightened person would not. Of course, there aren't actually any enlightened people or unenlightened people. There is only the behavior of an enlightened person and the behavior of an unenlightened person. By behavior, I don't mean that, someone who does good and recycles and, donates to charity and helps old ladies across the street is behaving like an enlightened person. The behavior is energetic. So I think energy is a good word because it doesn't really mean anything, but there's energy here that used to behave as an unenlightened person, and now it behaves as an enlightened person. And of course, there's no actual person, right? The person itself is a behavior, right? It's like a mime. There's no invisible wall. There's just a mime behaving as if there is an invisible wall, right? So while there's no actual enlightened or unenlightened person, there's this energy behaving as an enlightened or an unenlightened person. I don't say that there's no self. Again, that would be extreme. But what I will say is I can't find the self, right? I've looked and looked and looked, and it can't be found. And I've never met anyone who can find the self. Never come across a YouTube video of someone who said, "Eureka! I found the self." No one can find it. So I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but it's unfindable. And we don't really know what it means. We don't really have a definition for it. Now the thought that there's no self, or there's no one here, there's no one having these thoughts, feeling these feelings, there's no one doing these actions, those thoughts do come up a lot. And it's sort of the opposite of the old thinking, which is I'm thinking these thoughts, I'm feeling these feelings, I'm performing these actions. And I think this is the other extreme that is needed in order to create the balance. So it is helpful to notice or to say that there's no one here. It is helpful for that thought to come up because it counters the thought that there is someone here. And in reality, it's more ambiguous than that. That we just don't really know what someone is, and someone cannot be found. So that there is no self is an insight that's been pretty common and pretty graspable for probably the last 2 years. Though there's always seemed like there was someone who was grasping it, if that makes sense. It's really, really sort of paradoxical. But I think there's a stubbornness to it, right? I've looked for the self so many times. Every time I look for it, I can't find it. And so now, even when it feels like there is a self, there's no one having that feeling. It's just a feeling all on its own, because there is just I just have to admit that there isn't a self, right? That, I've looked and I've looked and I've looked and I can't find it. So I've had to admit that I will never find it, that the self will never be findable. I'll never say never, right? Except that there's no time, and that is a much. This is a newly graspable concept. There have been moments when, there's been like a mental state where there's been a recognition that there is no time. But now there's a consistent, again, acknowledgement that I can't find time, right? That time is not findable. I cannot at this moment experience the past. I can't. I can experience a memory of it, which is really just a thought. It's not really different from any other thought or imagination. I cannot at this moment experience the future. Again, I can imagine it, but I can't experience it. Which means that I have never been able to experience the past or the future. So it would be hubris for me to say that it exists, right? I can't say for sure that it does exist. I will never be able to find it. What I can say is there is this moment. That I have some certainty of, although that's a little shaky at this point. And that this moment is perfect. And it is perfect because I can't find any evidence that it could be any different from how it is. So if there's no option for this moment to be different from how it is, I must say that it's perfect. That there's nothing right or wrong with it. It is exactly how it should be. Also more recent, coming on the heels of no time, is no space. It requires time to experience space. My house appears to be about 200 yards up there, but that 200 yards is in the future. And once I get to my house, where I am now, that will be in the past. And because I can't experience the future or the past, I can't experience space either. So there's another one. So those are, time has been a struggle for me to accept. Space is even more difficult than time. But again, the more I look at it, every time I look at it and I can't find it, the more I have to acknowledge it. One thing that's been a little bit easier is peace. So absolute peace. that I am always at peace, because what would it mean to not be at peace? Well, I could say that I'm not at peace with what's happening. I could say I'm not at peace with a thought. I could say that I'm not at peace with a feeling. But what would it mean to not be at peace? Well, to not be at peace, I would have to say, well, there's a thought that says I don't like this, but then that's a thought. So what does it mean to not be at peace with that thought? Well, I could say that gives me a feeling in my belly, and an anxious feeling or sad feeling. And I could say I don't like that feeling. But again, I don't like that feeling is just a thought, right? So again, what does it mean to not be at peace with that thought? I can't find an answer to that. I can't find a reality where there is truly someone who is not at peace with the thoughts and the feelings, because all I can find is more thoughts and more feelings.